Watch this. No way!
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Cookie Jar Golf Podcast. I am Tom Mills and today I am joined by Bill Longmuir. Bill, welcome.
It's very nice to be here. I don't often come and view Open Championship courses. But
Do you not?
Opens, yeah. So
You're just playing them?
Well, I played in 10, but that was a long time ago. I did go to Royal St George's, I've got to admit, and I really enjoyed that. But this one's been an even better experience.
Have you enjoyed it?
Yeah,
What
really
have you enjoyed
loved
about it?
Well, I tell you what was a surprise to me was just how many vantage points you could get onto on this course.
Yeah.
So I stood directly behind and beside quite a lot of players and got a really good close-up view of their games.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that because I'm so used to watching golf now on TV.
Yeah.
I just don't see any live golf. It was just thrilling. But it also amazed me just, my eyesight's pretty good, especially my long-distance eyesight. But I couldn't see some of their balls come down.
No,
they just hit it so far now.
I find live golf actually quite difficult because my eyes aren't very good. And I just watch the players swing and their reaction and try and enjoy the atmosphere because, to be honest, it's just a lot better on TV if you want to watch what's going on. It's about the atmosphere, isn't it? Do you find we'll go on to the more formal parts of this in a moment, but you've been a professional golfer for many, many, many years, and you've, like you say, you played in 10 Opens. Watching these guys now, is it similar to when you played, or is it more violent, or is it, because there's a lot's changed, isn't it, since you started?
It's a big change. This is the longest Open Championship venue we've ever had. So they've stretched it out to its maximum, and for a good reason. These players hit it so far these days, it's just incredible. That probably is an issue with equipment and the way it's changed. I'd love to see them with not just the persimmons, but a smaller sweet spot, rather than hitting the ball with a frying pan.
Do you think it's clubs more than ball? Do you?
Well, no. It's. If you middle one of these modern balls, it goes, a good distance. But I think the driver being the size it is and having that trampoline effect. In the old days, if you mishit a shot, it went violently offline, with
it really
not
did
much
move on
flight.
Yeah.
And of course, you just don't see the players do that very often now. When they do hit it offline, it goes a long way, but none of these snap hooks.
Yeah, it's long and straight.
Yeah,
it's just kind of the degree it leaves the club face is larger, and it goes a larger distance.
So I think an element of skill has been lost, but the players have become more athletic.
Yeah.
So they
seem to wail on everything, like much more than everything seemed very graceful, many moons ago, and now it seems very violent.
Yes, I'd agree with that totally. It's just you play with players like Graham Marsh, who wasn't particularly long, but he always had the ball under control. John Bland was similar. Were beautiful straight hitters, and it was just certainly in on courses with fairways that are 22 to 26 yards wide.
Yeah,
you had to be straight because the long rough is evil, and particularly I guess with when it gets damp and wet, and it's just so difficult to kind of have any sort of control on it at all. But the Open's notorious for that. So straight hitting was a premium. You had to hit fairways.
Let's rewind this because I'm conscious I've just skipped over a huge part of this. So you are still a professional playing golfer?
Well, I sadly broke my arm December the 6th, so that's ended my career on the
Champions Tour.
Seniors Tour,
The
Legends
Seniors Tour.
So I played on the Legends Tour. This would have been my 20th year. So I'm 70 now. I turned pro in 1968. So, had a good stretch.
And you played on the European Tour mostly?
I played
And
on the
in South
European
Africa,
Tour.
is that right?
Yeah, I played all over Africa, East and West Africa on this safari tour, and certainly down on the Sunshine Tour as well. Australia, New Zealand, and in those days we even played South America, which was really cool because I'll never forget playing up in Colombia.
Yeah,
and
really.
Bogota and Cali and Barranquilla were wonderful places to play, and there's a lot of these old colonial golf courses in South America that are superb.
But you still got the tan from these places, Bill. You're still rocking the tan.
That's a permaturn.
But you're up here watching the Open. You've got a kind of a different role now within golf, working with Clayton de Vries and Pont. What are you doing with them?
So I've always been interested in golf course architecture. In fact, that goes way back to 1990. When I was out in Africa, I met and played golf with ex-president Kenneth Kaunda. And he had his own golf course in the state grounds where he lived. And on top of having a zoo there as well, funnily enough.
Really?
But it was, it was a great place to be. I loved Africa. The golf courses out there were built by mining engineers in a lot of cases, and they were very, very good. He asked me, or commissioned me, to build him 6 golf courses on national game parks. So I looked at each of the sites that he wanted the courses built on, and that took quite a long time in itself. But we started the first 9 holes at Kasaba Bay, which is on Lake Tanganyika. And I spent about 2 weeks cutting 9 holes out the bush, and went back home ready for the next visit. And he was knocked out of power and fled to South Africa. And so the course grew over, and no more golf course design work for me. So I can
safely say, Bill, it probably wasn't a slight on your architectural prowess at that point.
No, certainly not. It was, I threw myself back into playing, but this was in the off season anyway, so it was a good experience, something I enjoyed doing. Didn't get paid, of course.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was the start for me in golf course architecture, and I then went on I was involved and built a golf course in Oman called Gala Valley, which was a bit of an in-house build. So a lot of people donated the equipment and the manpower, but we built the course in a couple of weeks. It didn't take any time at all because it was a sand course.
Yeah.
So it was just pushing sand around. But they've turned that green now. So Gala Valley is now a green grass golf course. And it's quite a small acreage, so it's a little bit tight.
18 holes?
18 holes,
yeah,
but on about 60 acres.
Oh, wow,
which
that is tight.
Kind of
just to give our audience some perspective, an ordinary golf course would be
130, 140 acres. It's that's probably the average.
Yeah, and then of that, playing is about 60, isn't it? 60, 70.
Yes.
Managed surfaces.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So on this particular course, we had a practice range as well. So
in the 60 acres.
Exactly. So honestly, you will never be able to get your head around
hiding
this.
some land somewhere here.
Well, it's bordering on being dangerous.
It's kind of the old Tom approach, is it? Crisscrossing all over the place.
No.
Is there
actually,
not?
they didn't. Nothing crossed over. So it was up a bit of as it says, a valley, Gala Valley, but just extremely tight, and being a sand course, which it was originally designed as, of course the ball doesn't go anywhere. The sand's very soft out there. It just...
Well, so it was originally designed to be basically, you play off pure sand all the time?
So you play off a mat. Your tee shot is off a mat, and if you land within the markers of the fairway, you can play off a mat that you carry around on your golf bag.
Wow.
And you play to a green, which they call browns, which is a sand and oil surface, and you sweep it because you leave big footprints in it. So you sweep it after you've walked off. And
wow.
It happens a lot in Africa. So in fact, the early tournaments I played in Africa, in Nigeria, were all played on brown greens, or browns.
Wow, yeah.
So, and it's a remarkably consistent surface. You know, you can actually go back and track how, where you started your ball off and why it missed the hole, because you could see the movement. But then you just swept it off for the next group that were coming through.
Oh, wow. And how did you end up with Mike, and Frank at CDP?
So I met Ed Cartwright, and I've known Mike Clayton, of course, for years on tour. But I met Ed, who put the group together, and obviously he introduced me to the rest of the team. So Frank Pont and Mike DeVries. Clates often stays with me whenever he comes over to UK. Even when we were on tour, he always stayed with me. And I had quite a few of the Australian players sort of popping in occasionally for
really.
For
bet you got some stories there.
Sleepover. So it was just a bond that we've had for many years, and of course he got into architecture in a big way.
Do you think he likes architecture, Mike Clayton?
He loves it.
He's a bit into it, isn't
he? He is passionate about it, and we have some really interesting conversations, as you could well imagine. No, it's been an exciting sort of journey. Late in my life, really, late in my career, but I'm thoroughly enjoying it. So I work with CDP as an associate, and I try and open doors for them, and I do some refurbishment work for them. It's really good fun.
Well, I mean, I could honestly dive into some of this stuff. I mean, I didn't know much about the sand golf scene at all, really. I was just blowing my mind a little bit. So I'd love to dive into that more. However, we are sat here we're outside of Royal Liverpool Golf Club at the moment. We're in the CDP mega compound, the little flat that you guys have rented for the week. And I've got you on kind of because you've had this amazing career in the Open, played in 10, and you've led an Open overnight. Brian Harman, this is recorded, it will go out in a couple of hours, but as this is recorded, Brian Harman's yet to tee off and he's leading by 5. You've led an Open in 1979. Yeah. Was it 84 as well? Or?
I led 2. 79 at Lytham.
Yeah.
Shot 65. I was out very early in the morning, so it was pretty rough weather. And I just, I probably never had a round quite like that since.
So tell me about it. So how was that your first, second Open, the one at Lytham?
So that was my oh my goodness, it was my second Open. My first Open was 78 at St Andrews.
Okay. So I bet that was mind-blowing stuff.
That was incredible for a couple of reasons. The first reason was I went for I qualified, of course. Whenever you pre-qualify for the Open, it's pretty special. It's a tough tournament to get in. But then when I went for my practice round, I put my name down, as you have to do at the Open Championship. And there were blank spots next to me. So I thought, okay, I'll play nice and early on my own.
Yeah.
And I arrived on the first tee to find that Peter Thompson and Kel Nagel were short of a tee time, and they saw me on my own and joined me.
Oh, wow.
But what an experience. Kel Nagel won the Centenary Open at St Andrews, and he was delightful to play with.
Really?
At that stage in his life, he was kind of my age, I suppose, and he'd got very short, but it was great to play with him and listen to his stories of how he played the course, where he hit some of his tee shots in the last round. And what I particularly enjoyed was him talking about 17. He said, now, Bill, whenever you play 17, he says, as long as you get your shot in the fairway, he says, never go at the pin. And they always put the pin behind
there's no real
the
other
bunker.
pinable place there, is there?
So he says, never go for this. Never, ever shoot at that pin. He says, hit it low to the right and try and run it onto the front right-hand corner of that green. He says, don't even try and reach the trap. He says, because from the front right-hand side, look, it's a tough putt, but you're not going to have a disaster.
6. Yeah.
And I kind of kept that in mind. And when I did play that week, I used it quite well. But when I went back there after I led after the first round,
84.
I got it wrong.
Yeah.
84. Yeah, I'm 87.
Oh no!
But that was more to do with the tee shot.
Okay.
So I hit it out of bounds. But you know, after I led there after the first round, but that was more to do with, you know, when the tide changes at St Andrews, you can get an easy draw and a tough draw.
Yeah.
And I had the wind sort of with me on the front nine, and then the tide changed and it switched, and it was with me on the back nine. I didn't, you know, it wasn't spectacular golf, but I shot 67 and led with
Bill, for most humans, 67 is spectacular golf anyway, so I wouldn't put it down about that, but that is, you know, that's incredible.
Cool.
How does that feel, before we talk about the feelings of leading an Open, the 79 Open was an altogether different beast, wasn't it? The way that
the weather was rough at 79. Yeah, it was just blowing a hoolie, and I just cannot really fully explain what happened to me that day, because I was almost in a trance, which I've got to admit, you know, players have often said when they get into the zone or their bubble of concentration, you know, you don't want to come out of that. And I just wasn't coming out of it. You know, I was stuck in it. And a few things happened that day that were quite remarkable. First of all, you know, I kept making putts and hitting it well, hitting fairways and greens. But, you know, I putted really well. And that's always the key to doing well. But I'll never forget the tee shot I hit at 9, the short hole.
Yeah.
You know, I think I hit an ace iron. And, you know, I probably hit it to about 15 foot and 10 to 15 foot. Certainly not an easy putt, but Dennis Durnian, who I was playing with, said, I suppose you'll go and hold that, which I look back on and think, holy smoke, what a silly thing. You know, anyway, it didn't affect me that way, funnily enough. I said to him, yeah, you're damn right, I'm going to hold it, you know, and I did. I knocked it straight in the middle, and he put his arm around me. He's a great pal of mine, Dennis. And he said, well, hang on now, because we're going back into the wind on the back nine. And I says, no, I'm not finished. I'm ready for this, you know, and I truly wasn't. I don't know what possessed me that day, but I just had this amazing confidence, and I birdied 10 into the wind.
Tough hole 10 with that tight, that tight drive up in Lytham.
It is a tough hole. And then 11, the par 5, you know, I lipped out for a birdie. So I was right there, and I'll never forget getting on to 12, and I hit it to a couple of foot.
Yeah,
you
12's
know?
that par 3, yeah.
So all of it, and that was playing back into a bit of a crosswind. It was a tough hole. I then got on to 13, so I'm now 8 under par. Playing
first round.
First round.
Wow.
And it's blowing a
and you've
gale.
left out on 12 too.
But absolutely, you know, I didn't really leave any shots on the course, though, to be quite fair. But I got on 13. I remember hitting a real running tee shot and got very close to the green. I thought I could putt this. And I thought, I'm definitely going to putt it. You know, the pin was fairly close to the front. And but theoretically, I had this putt to go 10 under par.
Yeah.
And I looked at the leaderboard was right behind that green, and it's something I do look at leaderboards, but that day I hadn't really taken it in because we were out early.
Yeah.
I think we were 8 o'clock tee-off time. But I remember looking at the leaderboard and it had a message on it, and it was Nicholas had holed in one, but he was in second place at 4 under, and I had this putt to go 10 under, and I thought, my goodness, what am I doing? This is crazy. And I very rapidly 3-putted that.
Oh no!
And the cameras were all coming.
So you had
out,
a 4-stroke lead over me.
And the camera teams were shooting out onto the course to catch up with me now, and I kind of, it sunk in that I was doing something pretty remarkable in these weather conditions, and I played 14.
So that's not you three putted it, but that's for par because that's a short
for par.
fall, isn't it? Yeah.
But I was well short the green, but it's felt like a 3-putt. It's more a long putt and then 2 putts. But got onto the 14th, hit a pretty good drive, hit it just right over the pin, just off the back of the green, and I promise you, what was going through my head was amazing, because I felt I had such a feel that day. I just never had it again since, but I had a feel that day that I just cannot believe. I had got over this chip shot, and I thought I could easily just run this down to the hole. But I tried to jam it into the hole.
Tried to hole it.
I wanted to hole it. It was crazy. I just thought, I want more of this. And I hit it maybe 6 foot past the hole. It was a pretty good shot, but it didn't grip. And I missed the putt coming back. And then 15
and 17, the way you're describing the wins, they would both be into.
15 was impossible.
If they're hard holes.
15, I think I hit the fairway every day, but I hit driver every day, second shot.
Driver.
And I never hit the green. I remember never getting on that green that week. Anyway, I bogeyed that.
So now we're at 6.
Now we're at 16, and 16's pretty easy par 4.
6 under on 16.
6 under playing 16, and it's a good birdie chance. Never made birdie. 17, a really tough hole. Made par, so I was delighted.
Yeah.
Going to the 18th hole, but so I kind of calmed down a bit.
Yeah.
But 18's, a great driving hole, and I hit a shot, not a bad shot, over the pin to the back of the green, and I left myself a 60-foot putt.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I could just see the line before I hit the putt. It was incredible. And I hit this putt, and how it never went in the hole, to this day, I can't believe it, because I thought I was going to miss on the left, and I actually missed a putt on the right. That's how much it swung at the death. But it's just a putt I'll never forget. And that was for 64, but I shot 65, so it's just a tap-in putt. And I walked off the course thinking, my goodness, what just happened there?
Yeah.
I mean, it was remarkable.
When you lead an Open like that and you come off, I know the Open in recent years has grown arms and legs. It's huge. It's a monster now in terms of what it is. But when you lead an Open and you come off round 1, is there all sorts of media attention, and is it really difficult to deal with as a player that has perhaps been exposed to that level of media before? Oh,
God, I was completely unknown at that stage, although I had won a Nigerian Open.
Yeah.
But other than that, I was a middle order of merit player, so certainly not used to, being interviewed by the media. And leading the Open is, of course, so special. The media were all there, and they all wanted to hear my story. And I'll never forget sitting with Henry Cotton. It was the first time I'd ever met Henry Cotton. And we got chatting, and this was off mic, certainly after the interview. And he was saying, how did you feel within yourself as a player? And I said, well, I felt, good, and most of it was under control. I said, but when I get into the left to right wind, I was really struggling to hold it up into the left to right wind. And he was started to give me a lesson. He said, well, you've got to get your left shoulder higher and the back. But interesting stuff. So I got this lesson off Henry that went straight over my head, to be honest with you.
Good. I was thinking that you were going to say you
I went out the next day and I stuck to my game plan. But I'll never forget what he said to me that day. And I did work on it after that. But no, he was charming, absolutely charming. And it was just interview after interview. Yeah. But then do you have a choice? Can you say no to any of that? You probably could, but I had no intention of saying no. I was really enjoying all the attention was amazing. But the big drawback was one of the media men had phoned up my local newspaper back home in Basildon in Essex. Yeah. And they said, what do you know about Bill Longmuir? Give us the rundown. What have you got on him? And a good friend of mine. You hadn't been robbing newspapers, had you? No, I certainly hadn't. But he said, oh, Bill, the best story about Bill is he won Mr. Basildon. So I was absolutely inundated with questions on what was it like to be Mr. Basildon. I mean, the most excruciatingly embarrassing situation. So I'm being asked about this almost a beauty competition. But it wasn't. It was a personality competition from Basildon. But it's amazing the tone they put on this. Oh, yeah. And, they can spin anything, these guys. And I just... well, I didn't quite know how to take it, but of course the media loved it because it made headlines. And of course the other story was I'd driven a furniture lorry, a couple of months before I won my first tournament. So really? The members put some money together from my home golf course in Southend called Thorpe Hall, down in Thorpe Bay, and they put shares into me. But I'd been... in the winters when you were an assistant pro, there wasn't a lot of action, and I had to get a winter job, and that was my winter job, was delivering 3-piece suites and driving this delivery van. Wow. So they had a number of stories to go on, So just to touch on that, during this time you were still a teaching pro? Yes, basically. I was... I used to save as much money as I could to try and get out and play in tournaments. And there was Monday pre-qualifying in those days, which was a fantastic opportunity to get your foot in the door. I feel sorry for young players now that don't have that opportunity every week. Yeah. Because if you found a bit of form and you Monday qualified, you were into the tournament. If you made the cut in that tournament, you were exempt for the next tournament. Yeah. So I lived in the hope of doing that. Yeah. So, and I made quite a few cuts, but I didn't really get full-time on the tour until after I'd won the Nigerian Open in 76. So that got me in every tournament of that season, 1976 virtually. So I was off and away then. So you're leading the Open round one. Well, I know Harman at the moment is round two leading the Open, but you're leading the Open round one. You go through all your media duties. What's the thought process before you go to bed? Is it easy to sleep? Is it? Well, try and have the same dinner. What's? So, funnily enough, a good friend of mine who I worked for delivering 3-piece suites. His name's Les Cooper. Cooper's 3-piece suites from Southend. He came up, and I was staying in a bed and breakfast, and. Things were tight. It was difficult to afford, hotel bills and stuff. And he said, Bill, I'm going to take you out tonight. So we went out to a restaurant, really nice restaurant. And I just couldn't believe the amount of attention I got when I went to a restaurant. This stuff would have been broadcast on BBC at the time? Yes. Yeah. So people would see me on TV and came up to me at the table and wished me all the best. And but I wasn't used to that. But
Yeah.
Les was brilliant because he kind of kept me occupied, and we had dinner, and he dropped me off at my sort of bed and breakfast, and I went straight to bed. I was exhausted.
Would you have beers on something like that?
Oh
or
yeah,
you-
I had a beer. Oh, we all did that in those days. I mean,
That's amazing.
yeah, it wasn't like we had a lot to drink or anything like that, but I
Yeah.
had a beer
Yeah.
and didn't drink wine in those days, but I had a beer and a really nice meal, went to bed, slept really well. A lot of people said you probably struggled to sleep, but I didn't. I got up the next day and I was
So
ready.
you had a morning tea time day one.
Yep,
So your
afternoon, day two. Yeah.
Is it difficult then just to kick around in the morning, knowing you lead in the Open and watching people go out? And
Yes, it is. I mean, now in the days of mobile phones, I probably would have been, involved in a lot of phone calls from, well-meaning friends, which actually can have a negative effect on you because it can take you out of your train of thought in terms of what you want to do that day and how you get ready. And of course, as I played more and more tournament golf, I learned how to prepare more correctly.
Yeah.
But in those days, I was still pretty raw, but I was very keen, and I got up and practiced and, did the job pretty well. I went out, was nervous. It was windy again. I think I shot 74, which kind of looking back on it wasn't too bad.
Yeah. Still,
because
still
it was
in
a breezy day and I was still right there. I think I was in third place.
Yeah.
And I played with Tom Watson third round. So
how was that?
yeah, that was pretty special.
Yeah, I bet.
Playing with a great player like that. And I'll never forget on the second hole, we kind of, well, the first hole is a par 3, as you know, and at Lytham, and I think we both parred it. But the second hole, he hit it straight out bounds on the right over the
Really?
railway track,
Yeah.
and I kind of saw this, pulled it left, and pretty ugly shot.
Yeah, well, just knee-jerk reaction
And we're
stuff.
walking down. He hit another ball off the tee, and we're walking down the fairway, and he put his arm around me, and he said, "Right, Bill, we got the crap out the way there. Let's play some good golf now."
Oh, wow.
And
Because
it
he
was-
seems like that now when you see him on TV and stuff. He seems like he would do that. But he seemed quite steely when he played,
he really was quite steely, but he broke the ice with that
Yeah.
comment, and I really admire that because it was a pretty shocking tee
Yeah.
shot, to see. I mean, for a start, he was a right to left hitter, really.
Yeah.
He was a drawer, and he hit it straight over the bushes, over the railway line. I couldn't believe it, and I pull hooked it. But anyway, he was a good partner to play with. I enjoyed playing with him. We didn't talk a lot.
Yeah.
But it was great watching. Whenever you play with a great player, you get sucked into the
Well,
slipstream a bit.
You mentioned on in the first round when you see Nicholas's name arrive on the leaderboard, and it's kind of like a what am I doing type of moment. Do you get that same type of thing at the time again? I know you've won a Nigerian Open and starting to get established in the professional game. Is it still a bit like pinch me stuff and a bit intimidating to be drawn with a Watson?
It is, but it's also incredibly exciting. If you're a young player, a young sportsman, and you meet some of your idols, and you get a chance to compete next to them, wow, that's you get nervous, but nerves aren't bad.
Yeah.
Nerves, people always think of nerves as being destructive. They're certainly not destructive. I've always felt nervous getting on the first tee, but they wear off. You get used to it, and you get on with it.
Does it kind of, when you're playing with someone that you respect and you admire and you look up to, and you see them hit a rubbish golf shot, does it kind of think like, oh, they are human, they're just like me?
Yeah,
after all.
Absolutely. Well, it shocked me. That shot that he hit just totally shocked me. I thought, he's too good to hit that shot. But we all hit bad shots. Yeah. The one thing I did find, though, playing in the Open, and certainly when you've got a draw with a great player like that, is you look down the fairway and it's tunnel vision. You you're just seeing the fairway. You're seeing the
Yeah.
shot you want to hit, and the people just give you this.
They frame it.
They frame the shot
Yeah.
all the time. They're just framing the shot, and it helps so much. I can't tell you, because a lot of people said, you must be nervous about playing in front of all those people.
Yeah.
You don't see those people,
Yeah.
funnily enough. You're just seeing your target. It's great.
I noticed today, actually, I was walking around, regular listeners to the podcast, and know we've got a penchant for Richie Ramsey, and I walked 4 holes with him this morning before I had to get back. And there's a lot of there's loads of people, and there's loads of movement behind the green when people are playing approach shots. It's not so much when you're around the green, because the marshals calm it all down. Is it difficult to pick targets out, with this movement and stuff like that?
There is, but again, if you've got a top draw,
Yeah.
there's a blanket of people,
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
don't see the movement. Funnily enough, you just mentioned it. I would say more distracting than anything is some of the marshals behind the green.
Really?
When they decide to move, and you might be 160 yards out, but the target is so much in a good player's vision,
Yeah.
sort of thing, because you're up and down looking at the target before you pull the trigger. If there's a marshal walking behind the pin
Yeah.
to get into his position,
Yeah.
it can be very distracting. So I'd say, more so the marshal. But then again, if you're out early in the morning and you just made the cut and there's not many people there, so there might be 4 people behind the green.
Yeah.
If a couple of those start moving, it is distracting.
Yeah, more than, say, if
Yeah.
loads of people are...
Well, I have 20/20 vision. I've got very good eyesight, so I don't know if it was just me, but I always had a problem with that.
Really?
But big crowds, fantastic, but not many people wanted to watch me play. So, when it was only a few, when it was a few, it was difficult.
So you played this round with Watson. How did the third round go?
Third round was, actually, it was gradually getting worse. So I shot, I think, 77. I think I was 77 third.
Is that
round.
like fatigue? Is it? Do you get? Is it emotionally taxing to be leading an Open and all the media things you need to do, all the well wishing you're getting, and then these really big draws? Does it all kind of take its toll?
As a young man, no, I didn't feel the least bit worn out, tired by it. No, I was ready to go. I think emotionally you can start getting ahead of yourself, which is what happened to me.
Really?
And that is the kiss of death. You got to stay in the present. You can't start thinking about where you could be in the tournament, or what draw you would want to have in the next round, or who's doing what on the leaderboard. You've really got to stay very patient and have this quiet demeanor over the shots and work out your strategy, and that's what was slipping away from me, and I could feel that slipping away more every day. And the third round I played pretty well with Tom, but and we weren't far off the same score. I can't remember whether I beat him by a shot or he beat me by a shot. One or the other. But it was not a terrible result, but and I was still right there.
Yeah, I think reading earlier on after round 3 was still around the top 5. So
I wasn't. I know I wasn't too far out. So I was pretty geared up for the fourth round and did all my homework, my warm ups right, and I remember getting to the course. I was playing with Peter McAvoy, who was probably our best amateur golfer at the time, and fellow Scotsman, really nice guy, and we went out there and played. He's a bit of an old-fashioned swinger, but beautiful hands. Probably not a player that really played on instinct.
Yeah,
and I love those natural players, and he certainly had bagfuls of natural ability.
Really?
So I enjoyed it. We didn't talk a lot, and the only way I can explain it is things were slipping away from me, but I was still right there.
Yeah. Is it frustrating because, like you describe, I mean, we had many moons ago had a golf psychologist on by the name of Gio Valiante that talked about flow state, and you get into this state that it's just, you could be thinking about anything. You're certainly not thinking about golf, and it's all just happening.
Yeah.
Once you've been in a mindset like that and you can feel it slipping, is it hard, like trying to fight to get it back?
It is, because I was conscious of it, but I couldn't control it. I couldn't control the leaking.
Yeah.
And I wasn't making the same putts.
Yeah.
And I was probably then trying a bit too hard, and then probably trying to hit it too hard.
Yeah.
A lot of things were just getting away from me, but I was hanging on. I was conscious of it all and trying to, plug the holes in the swing, and just kind of trying to hit fairways and greens, avoid those, fairway traps which are lethal around there, and it's a bit of a minefield of those. But with about 5 holes to go, I was hanging in pretty well. But then I had the most appalling finish. I finished something like double bogey, bogey, par, double bogey, something like that. I mean, it was just appalling beyond
all
belief.
The wind fell out of the sails.
And I think I shot 82 last round. But I remember coming off the course, and I was just... The finish it's a tough finish anyway. Last 2 holes are good testing hole, and of course 15 is tremendously tough. But I came off the course and I was just gone. I got into the changing room, and I'd formed this really nice relationship with the locker room attendant, and he kind of put his arm around me and said, "Bad luck, Bill," and he knew how I felt. And I just sat down and changed my shoes and emptied the locker. And I sat there I didn't want to go outside. I just didn't want to face anyone. And I just tried to collect myself a bit and try and think of some positive things, because, I'd really beat myself up the last few holes. And I remember sitting there, I probably sat there for 20 minutes or more. But then I heard the crowds. And I remember in the changing room at Lytham, they've got these windows that are quite high, right at the back of the green. And I stood on the bench, looked out the window to watch Seve holding out to win the Open. Yeah. And I sat down and I cried. I was so upset that I wasn't there, and I just was so upset. And I got in the car and I drove south, and I remember going into a petrol station because I was on empty, and the petrol station attendant said, "Bad luck, Bill. Great effort." And I thought, this cheered me up. It had entirely the opposite effect. I thought, holy smoke, how does he know me? Yeah. He doesn't know me. He watched me on TV. And it really meant a lot to me. This guy saying this to me. Yeah. I thought, wow, I can, maybe I achieved more than I thought. Yeah. People might remember me not as a failure.
I must say, Bill, you must be the only person that cried at Seve winning the Open.
It was quite remarkable. But what a win of his,
these are only supposed to be, because we are releasing them daily. Unfortunately, they're only supposed to be short and sharp, and we've been going for a good 40 minutes, but I've loved it. But before I let you go, you mentioned Henry Cotton. Now, Henry Cotton, I'm going to give you a quiz here, Bill, has something in common with these people. And just not just these people, but there's many other people that have this. So, what do they have in common? Ted Ray, Archie Compston, Henry Cotton, Fred Daly, Percy Ellis, Peter Ellis, Christy O'Connor Sr., Tony Jacklin, Nick Faldo, Ken Brown, Rory McIlroy, Shane Lowry, and Bill Longmuir.
Shot 65 in the Open.
No. but close. Probably there's something to do with the low score at the Open.
Tooting Bet Cup.
The Tooting Bet Cup. Now,
Wow.
what is the Tooting Bet Cup?
So the Tooting Bet Cup is the RNA's award to the British player that shot the lowest score. And it's the first person that shot that score, I think.
Okay.
And what you get is a medal and a beautiful silver plate, which is an exact replica of your scorecard.
Oh,
with
really?
all the printing and all the mistakes and the signatures on a silver card.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's a proud possession of mine at home.
And where does it reside?
Oh, just in the cabinet in the lounge. Yeah, it's
I've read conflicting things on this. Some people say you have two, and some people say you have one.
Oh, well, I only got one.
There you go then, just one.
One card and one medal. And funnily enough, that medal was stolen in South America, in Brazil.
Oh no!
I was going in for a swim and I was wearing it on a chain around my neck, and I handed it to Anders Forsbrand's girlfriend, who wasn't going into the sea because there's a vicious undertow there, and put it on her neck. Anders and I went in for a dip, and we looked back at her, and this guy came up to her and ripped the chain off her neck.
Oh no!
And really cut her neck quite badly and made off. So I chased him. I came out the sea and I legged it. I'm quite a good runner. And I
What were you
followed
wearing at
him
this
for
point,
about
Bill?
a mile. And he ran up into this shanty town and I saw a policeman and he spoke English. And I told him, and he says, "You can't go in there." He says, "You'll be stabbed." So that was the end of my medal.
Oh
So
no! Did you ever contact the RNA and?
I didn't. I should get a replacement. Garrard's made it, and it's something that's been on my mind for many years because that probably happened in the mid-'80s. Yeah, it was very sad to lose it, but I've never replaced it. But I must try and find a replica.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's the story I wasn't expecting. That's good. Am I right in saying you didn't play an Open at Hoylake?
No, I didn't.
No, it was
It
off the
wasn't-
rotor at that point.
Yeah, it was off the rotor.
What's your thoughts on it this year as you go around?
I love it. I thought the course was beautifully turned out. It's weather's pretty reasonable. I mean, today it looks like rain, but it's very calm. And I expect there'll be low scores. I expect.
Yeah, well, they're starting to look low. The early ones, there's some people that are shooting 4, 5, 6 under,
Right.
or were 4, 5, 6 under when they were still playing. I'm not sure what's happened in the meantime. Brian Harman's about to tee off in 30 minutes. Now, 5-shot lead. Think it's enough?
I would think he probably didn't sleep too easy.
Do you not think?
Well, getting towards the end, 5-shot lead, halfway through. Look, I'm going to say I do fancy his chances.
Yeah.
I'm a big Tommy Fleetwood supporter, a huge Tommy Fleetwood supporter. I'd like to see the wind blow a bit because I think that helped Tommy. The thing that falls in Harman's favour is he's straight, he's short, he's straight, but he putts really well. And, that's a good recipe for success. Watch out, Harman. If we get a bit of wind, Tommy's got a great chance of catching him.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Do you think it's difficult? Do you think it's going to be difficult? Obviously, he's gone out and shot. I think it was 4 under, 6 under. Do you think it's going to be difficult to continue with an aggressive mindset when par's okay?
Yeah, I haven't heard any of his interviews, so I can't say what he's thinking. But to me, doesn't look that type of player that would shoot really tight pins. He's an intelligent player. I've watched lots of his golf from the States on TV, and he's not a prolific winner, but he's
two wins on the PGA Tour.
Yeah,
so.
but he's often there in the mix.
Yeah.
So he doesn't, this would really huge breakthrough for him. You know, we'll see how his temperament holds up. It looks pretty sound to me, though. He doesn't look at the type of player that would get carried away or start attacking pins.
No.
I think he's got a game plan that he's obviously going to stick with. And, you know, I do like the fact that he drives it straight and he's quite a flat ball hitter. So he's going to make up that deficiency in length with run. Yeah. And almost keep up with the boys. Yeah.
Well, Bill, thank you so much for joining us and telling us about certainly the 79 and the 84 Open. And, you know, it's a neat little insight into what these guys are going through today. So thank you very much indeed for joining us on the Cookie Jar Golf podcast. Oh, what I should say, I'm sorry, Bill, because you don't want to hear this, but if you are, I'd be amazed if you're not still listening to it, but if you are still listening to this podcast, there is the giveaway for the tailor-made tour bag. That's the yellow one to celebrate the 151st Open at Royal Liverpool. The question that you need to send us the answer to, contact@cookiejargolf.com, is who are the 3 amateur winners of the Open? And I'm sure you know the answer, Bill, but please don't give it away. So we will go off air and find out. So thank you very much, Bill, and goodbye.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
That was brilliant. I can't believe they nicked your medal.
Watch this.